This may be a little weird, but excuse me if the phone falls over. I don't have a proper way to mount it. Right now I'm headed over to a dental appointment that is basically an hour away. But when I woke up this morning, I quickly went on to the YouTube Shorts. Was flipping through just shortly, just trying to gather my bearings. And I seen a scene out of Fury. And I've seen that movie many a times. And it's when War Daddy, the staff sergeant that's in charge of the tank, decides to hold the crossroads from all the SS coming down the road that Norm warns them about. And I got it zoomed out to 0.6, so if excuse me if it looks a little weird. State police. I'm going 65, you can kiss my ass. But everybody's like, come on, let's run. In the short, they were like, and in the movie too, but in the short, it was right when basically Sergeant fucking made up his mind and started climbing the tank, and then started loading his guns and getting ready for the fence. And everybody's like, come on, let's run. Like, let's get out of here. And he's like, no, I'm standing in the middle of the road. And then Bible was like, hey, shut up. What are you doing? He's like, I'm gonna fight and defend. He's like, hey, is that what you want to do? He's like, no, it's not what I want to do, but that's what I gotta do. And at least that early in the morning, that kind of struck a chord with me this morning. Because I've been thinking lately, obviously the Army has its value of duty. I can't quote that verbatim. You're supposed to be able to kind of do that, but that's Army propaganda in a way. Personal opinion. But Army has its way of explaining different values, the whole acronym leadership, loyalty, duty, respect, self-service, honor, integrity, and personal courage is all the Army values, and they all have their subset definitions, and they're very meticulously worded, my interpretation of duty, right? That's what I want to put out. It's like I honor that scene because, like, it kind of, at least that short, summated up what I believe what duty is. It's a powerful thing in a way because, like, you gotta, to be a dignified man, right? As a male, to be a dignified man, in my opinion, in my value set, you gotta have some integrity and some intestinal fortitude to stand up for what you believe isn't necessarily what you want to do, but what you got to do to stand up for your own viewpoint in life, like how you view the world. And that's what he was doing. He was like, I don't want to fight and die on this hill, but goddamn, I'm gonna do it because that's the right thing to do. And it's not necessarily what I've been told was the right thing to do. That's what I came up with, my own opinion, my own way of thinking. Maybe I'm not elaborating this quite right from my head to this video, but it's something powerful to say, I'm a guy on this hill. Because I've been seeing that on Facebook quite a bit on my little Facebook group that's pretty much anti-ATF, an anti-NFA, just, kind of a mean group. They're like, we don't like the ATF because it's kind of unconstitutional to regulate firearms because of the Second Amendment. It says shall not be infringed. It doesn't matter what kind of infringement it is, it shouldn't be infringed. But that's a distraction. But what I'm saying is, like, dude, you're right. Like, I don't always want to go to work all the time, right? It's not being lazy. It's just like sometimes you're not treated dignified at the place that you profess loyalty to, in a way. So you don't want to be loyal to them, because if they're not loyal to you, why should you be loyal to them? Because they'll switch on you at any minute, But I have a duty to myself, at least, to keep myself stable. And that's not the extreme that I'm talking about. It's an example, The extreme I'm talking about is like they're introducing, just an example, they're introducing church into state buildings and schools, like completely trying to dominate one religion over all religions. I don't agree with that, right? First Amendment wasn't meant to be there for one religion. It was meant for all religions, all peaceful religions, at least, right? Because the Constitution and everything, and all of our founding documents, and all of our constructive ways of thinking, not destructive but constructive ways of thinking, were laid out, and they were told that, and they are recorded as, peaceful and tranquil assembly, and any religion and whatnot that isn't peaceful in that sense doesn't have the right to be violent. They can assemble, but it can't be violent about it. And it can't, in my opinion, it shouldn't dominate other religions. It's like, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any of those religions. I don't think any one is right. How could there be God or any of that stuff if there's so many different claims? That's personal beliefs. All I'm just trying to say is, I'm bored and recording a video. I wanted to say something about that scene. Like, there's something powerful in standing up for those beliefs, Something kind of moving, Well, like, say they're introducing, easy one to go off of because they always try to do it, Christianity into the schools, to where you have to memorize the 10 Commandments and some other stuff, right, or whatever. Kind of like the Pledge of Allegiance you're required to do in the morning. I'd be willing to do anything necessary legally to try to get that removed, because that's unjust. And that's one of the things that I was thinking about yesterday is injustice, right? Because a friend of mine is an acquaintance, within the unit that I serve in. And, none of my values are reflective of the Army's values, per se. I just have to abide by the Army values and emphasize the Army values, right? So, like, if I have to get sent somewhere to where it'd be a better deal to coincide with the enemy, I'd obviously have to coincide with friendly forces. Loyalty, the duty, respect, I can't disrespect my own troops test, but, I There are little micro definitions, or maybe just a bit of miss. But they're mostly incorrect in my opinion. But like personal views is a different thing. On to back what my one friend was saying. He was saying that injustice in one place is injustice in all places. And I was really thinking about that yesterday. And he's right. But I don't think it's all places as in the whole world, like he was trying to say. I think it's an injustice within that culture. You know, I was watching Carl Caserta's video yesterday at lunch on his newest ones about the battle, or quote-unquote massacre or battle or whatever you want to call it, at Wounded Knee. I would consider it a battle, but it was a massacre because they were trying to disarm him. But it was, in my opinion, it was a battle a little bit because the shot was fired in defense. But Wounded Knee, he was basically, the overarching theme is like all the Indians banded up against the Americans. Eventually, over time, we've always had conflicts with the Indian nations because they've had an injustice in one place, therefore it's an injustice in all places. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of things that could be discussed, I guess. But I just wanted to say, like, if you're willing to stand up for something like that, it is your duty to do it, right? Same as any American. That's why I'm such a believer in, like, people's right to have lethal force devices, right? Now, I don't know. I don't think mutual destruction devices should be acquired by civilians and or even militaries, really, but I do believe that if you're willing to be a part of the system for the betterment of the system, you have a duty to that system to uphold that system that you believe in, right? And that's kind of what War Daddy was doing, in my opinion. He was standing up for what he thought was right for him and his comrades. He was being that leader, you know. He's somebody you could kind of emulate, except for he had suicidal tendencies in a way. If you look into it on the meta, on the internet, supposedly he had suicidal tendencies. In the film, you really don't see that too much. You don't pick that up too much. But the lore behind it is, he was, a teacher, and then he got divorced or lost his wife or killed his wife or something. So then he felt bad about getting divorced or losing his wife, losing his spouse. Therefore, he wanted just to have it at the end of it, so he enlisted into the army because they needed to help with the war. So he went all the way from the beaches in that tank all the way up to his demise. To just about the end of the war. I don't know, I just kind of wanted to share a little bit of my thoughts, and I know it's a little bit of a ramble and not incoherent a bit, not fluent and whatnot. That's just how I kind of think. And I think that's the whole point of the internet, is to share ideas and share viewpoints and share thought peacefully. It's been turned into a social engineering tool, though. I don't really appreciate that too much, but what are you going to do? I see so much violence on the internet from people because they don't want to sit and understand anybody's viewpoint or opinion. And now with some of the videos that I've seen recently, just doing my infinite scrolling through. I don't have TikTok, but I do TikTok-like things, right? I go through Facebook and YouTube Shorts, another social engineering tool for captivating short attention span audiences. and they were talking about abortion and stuff like that because the Roe v. Wade got overturned, supposedly. What they say is overturned. I don't think it got necessarily overturned. The power of the states got returned. I don't like the word overturned, because overturned is like we live in a totalitarian state. And I don't, and that's one of them things that, like, I die on that hill if we ended up actually having a movement with everybody's support to defeat a totalitarian state, you know, and that happens in third world nations all the time. Duty is a sense of having a greater responsibility, even if it goes against what you want, but what you know you need, you know. It's like, I don't want to sit here and coddle this grown-ass woman, but she's a spouse, so it's my duty to do that, to be a good spouse. You know, I may not want to do X, Y, or Z for her, but I know I have to put on a good face about it, because that's what I have to do. That's my wife, you know, she has my back, and I ought to have hers. This is not a one-way street of loyalty and duty, you know. That's what War Daddy was kind of emulating. He was saying, I don't want to do this. Like, I know I'm going to die because our tank's busted. We don't have mobility. There's no way we can survive this. Not against fucking 50, 100, 300, whatever. Even a squad at 10. Just barely not survive because that tank limits you quite a bit. That's such an overwhelming fight. 4 or 5 people versus 10 people is kind of an overwhelming fight. And it can be done, but it's really overwhelming. But he's like, it's the right thing to do, because they're going to come down this fucking hill and they're going to cut off the supplies from rear. That's why we've been sent up this far, is because the United States infantry boys behind the tanks, which I don't know why you would send tanks out and in a reconnaissance thing, in a way, in such a small number as well. But, you know, I wasn't there, and that's a fictional story, but I'd imagine something simple like that happening. Because I know history just enough, and people's attitudes, and I can read people just well enough that I can see what might happen. So, yeah. Another thing I kind of want to share, just thinking about it now, driving up here. I know this video's long. I met a guy by the name of Charlie Smith, and he took us in the box truck, drove us to NTC in this box truck with all of our luggage on it. He didn't drive us to the actual box, but he drove us up to the airport, local airport, to fly us out. He was a Vietnam vet. He was infantry. He was drafted. Got his knee blowed up. Shot, right? Had a titanium knee put in. 50 years later, they want to fucking replace it, because it's just not going bad type thing. But he's like, I went into the jungle with like a whole platoon, and I came out the leader of a fucking small fire team. I went in with like 30, 40 guys, came out with like 5 or less. That's how I got sergeant. Because I got sergeant, I think he said he got sergeant in a year and a half, and he retired as first sergeant. I got out I think he said he got out in the mid-80s. He had a full career. Now he drives truck with his wife and his little Chihuahua dog. Cute little shit too. Only Chihuahua I'd actually appreciate, you know. And I asked him, I'm like, I've asked this, you're the kind of character that I'd ask this, right? And I've asked this to a couple of people. I asked it to my LT, just for the shits and giggles, but I asked it to my grandmother. And I've asked it to some other people, but only a couple of them have stuck with me, right? I asked the question, if you were to know that you're going to pass away shortly, but you can impact the next generation with one little statement, what would you say? My grandmother said to believe in God. The one piece of advice is what I meant. My grandmother said to believe in God. Lieutenant of my platoon, the one time, he got shifted off for nefarious reasons of suspected misconduct, but I don't think it was ever founded, but they still moved him away from the situation, basically to save his career. But he said, don't worry about the things you can't worry about. Charlie said something. Oh, I asked my father-in-law, Wally, once, and he said, well, something kind of like this. I didn't ask that. Sometimes it comes up without asking the direct question, right? Because that's a pretty blunt thing to say. My father-in-law just said just to know your job, know everything about it, and go about life, and be the best you can be. And I apply that within reason. Charlie said, I'm like, what's the number one thing you could give advice? And he was like, in combat and everything and anything, because we started talking about, his service and whatnot, and because like, you don't meet very many non-vets anymore. He was 70, and he was drafted when he was really young. Nom's getting up there in age, like World War II was back when I was a kid. It's getting up there in age. There's barely any World War II vets left. And I think the last World War I vet died a couple of years ago. And he was old, bro. But Charlie said just to survive. Accomplish the objective and survive. He's like, you don't need to abandon your mission, but you need to survive. You need to do the things you need to do to survive. And then he got talking about it, our modern gear and stuff, and how it's improved so much. And he wish he had all that shit that we've had, but not necessarily all the weight, all the excess weight. Because in Nam, they were really under equipped. They're just starting to equip them with actual modern fight kit, quote unquote modern, the flak vest and all that other stuff. And he's like, he kind of badmouthed the flak vest a little bit, but I would have took a flak vest over anything over nothing any day, because he's like, there's so much shit flying in the battle space. A flak vest will save your ass, but it's not bulletproof, and we wanted something bulletproof. Survive. Do what you got to do to accomplish your mission. Never abandon the mission, but survive. Wally is a Ranger Regiment Sergeant Major, and he said, know your job up to the fullest and be prepared to do your job. Pretty much summation. He said, know your job to the fullest, and just, his whole attitude is to be politically correct or whatnot. My grandmother was like, believe in God because He will take care of you. And Lieutenant Allen was just said, and like, don't stress, There's things that you can stress about, that you can control, but the things you can't control, don't try to control them. But I guess that's my motivational speech of the day. I try to ask somebody what's their motivational word of the day, and I usually get bullshit answers. But at least I'm instituting some kind of daily routine with people, thinking like how to be motivated and a little more dedicated to what they're doing instead of just being an ambience, Anyways, toodles.